This is a special post-election edition of Crossroads. Thank you for being here. I have assembled some of my friends, some of the best and brightest minds in our community to kind of analyze what happened, find out how he did it, and where we go from here as a country. And please help me welcome A.L. Brown, political analyst from AM 1500. He's a lawyer, too. A lot of people didn't know that. He's a lawyer, too. Ramsey County Commissioner, Ms. Toni Carter, Professor Rose Brewer from the University of Minnesota, youngster in the room, Dylan Kelly, who was Gophers for Obama's got his T-shirt on, and one of the organizers there on campus, and a living legend sitting over there. And girl, I done forgot your name. Josie Johnson. Okay, yeah, because see, you know, I'm getting old, yeah, the little Alzheimer's set in. So thank you all so much for being here with us this morning on Crossroads. And we got to start out with you. You, political analyst, has followed this presidency since the 2004 Democratic speech, knew something was brewing, knew something was going to happen, had faith from the very beginning that it could happen. How did he do it? How did he first beat the Clinton machine and then turn around and get an overwhelming majority of the popular vote?
Well, I think he did it by doing things differently, by tapping into the youth, tapping into technology, deciding that he wasn't going to run in the same states that the Clintons had run, you know, primarily based on Howard Dean's 50-state approach to getting Democrats elected. So he played in all the states. You know, it was, as we got closer to Election Day, Montana was up for grabs. Now that goes to show you how much he shifted the entire paradigm on what's necessary to win an election and what's necessary. I think that'll actually help him govern as well, this idea that we just don't run in New Jersey and in California and in Illinois, that we have to consider other states. This is how he won North Carolina. This is how he put Virginia back in play. This is how Missouri became a more contested. I think they ultimately, I don't know if it's been called yet, but this is how it became a much tighter race in those states. He also did it by hard work, right? Surrounding himself with smart people and building it from the ground up. You know, there was a big joke at the Republican convention about community organizers. Well, one just moved into the White House because he could community organize. He knew from his days in Chicago what it meant to sit around coffee houses and neighborhood houses and talk about dog parks and talk about gang violence and all the things that seem trivial, and he got a sense of the people, and he built that internal resume, and he took it everywhere he went. So he did it because he worked hard and he was smart.
Everything, A.L., was above scale. You know, they always say, if we do something, you already know this, if we do something, it has to be twice as good as everybody else. It was 10 times what anybody could have expected. The Democratic convention, the speech the night he was elected. How did he just, everything was just so excellent. I don't even know how to describe it, but I mean, everything was just above scale.
Well, he's fantastic. I mean, he's incredibly bright, right? You have to start with that he's the first black editor-in-chief of the Harvard Law Review. That's a big deal. And if you go to law school and it's the club where all the smart people get together and write about things that nobody really wants to read, but it takes a lot of time to put the information together and be smart about it. You know, he's excellent in every way. He seems to have picked an excellent wife, which is a good sign of good judgment. Across the board. But, you know, I'll also add this to it without taking anything away from his high-quality campaign. The people were hungry.
That's right.
Right? So if somebody makes you a meal and you're real hungry, it cannot be that good, but it can taste real good.
It's like if you're hungry, somebody gives you potato chips, it tastes like steak.
Sirloin. So the people were hungry, and he had a low standard to go against. Frankly, even within the Democratic Party, John Kerry did not excite people. People who voted for John Kerry were voting against George Bush. This is a completely different campaign. He was inspiring. He was smart. He was organized. He reached every level. And the other smart thing he did is he didn't run on being black, which is he handled the presidency much like Colin Powell handled the Secretary of State job. Colin Powell never shied away from the fact that him being the first black Secretary of State was historic. He just never made it a big deal. He says, I'm black, this is fantastic, this is historic, and now I've got a job to do.
And Toni, you're shaking your head because you agree that people were hungry.
That's right, absolutely. And he represents the American story.
Yep.
You know, sure, he's black, and that is an incredible thing, in particular for young black children and for older black men and women who never could have imagined seeing this happen in their lifetime. But on top of that, he is an incredibly qualified individual to take on the reins of becoming president of this United States. So many people were energized by him, not just the youth, you know, but every single factor that is hoping for hope and justice really saw this candidate, who is now our president-elect, as the manifestation of so many years of pain and suffering, now the deliverance of hope. So I think we've set high expectations for him. And I'd like us to maintain those high expectations. It's going to be a tough, tough period for him, but we have a lot of hope.
I can weigh in on this question. I think a whole set of forces came into play, and one we haven't spoken about is that this country's in deep economic crises. And the fact that this crisis hit at a moment slightly before the election occurred, I think gave impetus to this change agenda, because there are people who are desperately suffering in the United States. The latest economic statistics, I think officially 6.5%. I'm hearing data that say it's as much as 10, 11, 12%. So you could almost say a perfect storm of things came together. A highly effective candidate, an administration that was in the pits, and a society that is facing the worst economic crises perhaps since the Great Depression.
Just from a youth perspective, I think the biggest deal, at least for me, is I was in 7th grade and 13 years old when George Bush was elected.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, I remember hearing about Bill Clinton. I know about his policies. I know about the 90s, but I mean, as a 6th grader, you don't understand. And so, I mean, it's all I know is George Bush's America. And you know, the idea of change for me means not just, you know, changing back to progressive values, because there was no progressive values in my, you know, the history that I know. So it's a huge deal. And the other part about it just feels good to prove people wrong. You know, a couple days before the election, Rick Davis, McCain's campaign manager, said, you know, youth don't vote, and they're just good at showing up to rallies and wearing T-shirts.
Wow.
Yeah, extremely insulting. And we proved him wrong. You know, we showed up in droves in Iowa, in Pennsylvania, Florida, here in Minnesota. We had 2.5-hour lines at the U of M. And people stuck in there and actually waited for 2.5 hours to go vote.
And why do you think that the young people were so energized and so excited on college campuses all around the country? You guys stayed in lines and you didn't get out, and I mean, you know, you missed class anyway, you know, but you're right, but you know, this time, I mean, nobody was moving. Usually, you know, you know, we were all young. You wait for 15 minutes and you're like, okay, I hope somebody else votes for him because I got to go back to bed. But you guys really hung in there and stuck it out.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he tried to get the youth vote. You know, you know, there's that general perception that we don't vote. So campaigns usually don't invest in actually trying to get us out. They think it's a waste of time, waste of resources. And he put together, I mean, the best organization I've seen on campus. I mean, you know, if you look at like Iowa caucuses, always starting at the very beginning, and one of the reasons he won is because we showed up at the same rate as senior citizens. And that's because he put together a team to get us to show up. And that usually doesn't happen. You know, even in 2006, we had an organization, youth coordinated committee or whatever, but it was put together by us, and there was no leadership coming from the top. And this time, you know, he put together.
How about the text messaging?
Oh, the text messaging, yeah.
It's the way to reach the youth.
Absolutely. He used the technology, and that's how we communicate. I mean, if you look